Griffin Award for Adaptive Reuse, the Foundry Hotel. Built in 1915, the 3 brick buildings making up the Asheville Supply and Foundry Company provided the steel to build much of early Asheville, including the Jackson Building, City Hall, and the expansion of the Biltmore Estate. In 2016, a preservation easement for the foundry was donated to the Preservation Society of Asheville and Buncombe County, ensuring that the facade of the Asheville Supply and Foundry is permanently protected. With the guidance of PSABC, the North Carolina State Historic Preservation Office, and the National Park Service, this thoughtful adaptive reuse is a melding of old and new. The 3 original standalone buildings were connected with 2 new buildings, and the Foundry Hotel was born. Grand public spaces allow guests the freedom of lounging in large common areas while still enjoying intimate vignettes around every corner. The oversized lobby opens onto the beautifully manicured courtyard, which is centered in the middle of the 5-building complex. The courtyard itself will provide entertaining activities, all centered around lush gardens and comfortable outdoor seating. 5 unique buildings allowed for many different layouts for guest rooms. Original architectural elements, such as steel beams and brick walls, were highlighted instead of covered. Color schemes reminiscent of the 1900s were created for original buildings, and coordinating but different color schemes were used in the newer buildings. The rooms include modern-day rugs atop original 100-year-old hardwood flooring and period-style furnishings, while also including modern-day conveniences to accommodate today's traveler. The artwork is a custom-curated collection of local photographs, period illustrations, and vintage-inspired pieces with intricate antique frames. All of this to ensure the guest experience will be like no other. Griffin Award, Adaptive Reuse, Black Mountain College Museum. Located at 120 College Street, this 1914 building has had many lives. Originally, it was home to the Asheville Gazette-News, which used the first floor as the press room and the second floor as the composing room until 1923. In the 20s and 30s, it housed various offices and boarding rooms, then a furniture store and an upholstery shop. And from 1960 to 1973, the Asheville Community Theater. Though the street level hosted a number of businesses in more recent years, the upper 2 floors had been abandoned for decades and were in great need of repair. This extensive project resulted in a new home for the Black Mountain College Museum on the main and lower levels of the building, as well as 3 residential apartments on the upper levels. Historic features of the building were preserved and restored per the National Park Service's Secretary of Interior standards, with certification by the State Historic Preservation Office, all while upgrading utilities and providing building code compliance for floor load capacities, exiting, and fire rating. Black Mountain College Museum and Art Center continues the legacy of the educational and artistic innovation of the Black Mountain College for public study and enjoyment. This adaptive reuse provided facilities for collections, conservation, and educational activities, including exhibitions, publications, and public programs. On a daily basis, the College Street level functions as a gallery space which also accommodates 180 people for lectures and presentations. Griffin Award, Rehabilitation, Child's House. The James Madison and Leah Arcuette Child's House is a rambling 2-story Spanish colonial revival-style villa located in the Kenilworth neighborhood of Asheville. A successful businessman and real estate developer, Jake Childs engaged local architect Ronald Green, best known for the Jackson Building, to design the house, which was constructed between 1922 and 1925 for his family as their personal residence. New homeowners, Kevin Broadwater and James Vaughn, are deeply invested in the history of the home and Kenilworth. Due to their dedication, the home is now recognized on the National Register of Historic Places. They also worked to have the park across the street from the home dedicated in honor of Leah Childs, who, among her many accomplishments, was the first woman elected mayor in western North Carolina. Finally, Kevin and James undertook a meticulous rehabilitation of their home. The team conducted a thorough exploration of the property to find and restore the original living room wainscoting. Remnants of original wainscoting were found in the basement, and new, custom-milled components were used to replace the rest. Historically inaccurate trim was removed from around the windows and doors and replaced with new, authentic-style trim. Plasterwork throughout the home was repaired to match the original. Period-style door hinges and hardware, thought to have been designed and manufactured by Anthony Lord, a well-known architect and ironworker, were cleaned and reinstalled. French double Dutch doors, also thought to be designed by Lord, in the dining room and library were removed to repair rot damage and rehung. Custom-made tiles from an expert manufacturer were ordered to repair damaged tiles, resulting in a seamless restoration of the original bathroom. The completed job reflects the care taken in returning the home to its original form while addressing the needs of a modern life. Griffin Award, Rehabilitation, Chai Pani Restaurant. Located at 22 Battery Park Avenue, this three-story building fronting both Battery Park Avenue and Wall Street was built in 1927. According to city directories, it originally housed the Fenner and Bean brokerage firm. In 1953, the street level facing Battery Park Avenue became Brown's Restaurant. After that, various restaurants came and went until the 1970s, when it became Ye Old Sandwich Shop. Finally, in 2009, Meherwan and Molly Irani leased the space and, operating on a shoestring budget, opened Chai Pani Restaurant. Chai Pani's popularity led to opening MG Road on Wall Street facing the other side of the building, and another Chai Pani in Decatur, Georgia. In 2017, they undertook a rehabilitation project at the flagship restaurant, cutting through the many built-up layers of old restaurants to get back to the original 22 Battery Park space. 22 Battery Park Avenue and its neighbor, the Flatiron Building, have a common, interconnected history. The top floor of number 22 can only be accessed through the main lobby of the Flatiron, and many utilities between the buildings are intertwined. As part of the project, the old cobbled-together electric service was separated and upgraded to current code standards. Layer upon layer of abandoned plumbing, electrical, and heat piping were hidden under multiple layers of outdated decor, including faux brick wallpaper, 1970s-era wood paneling, and drywall. The removal of these materials added 2 whole feet to the dining area of the restaurant. Finally, the original terrazzo floors were cleaned and polished. Much of the original wood storefront and entry were refinished, along with replacing the failing exterior tile, painting, and exterior repair of the windows. Griffin Award, Rehabilitation, Asheville High School. Asheville High School, also known as Lee Edward High School, was constructed from 1927 to 1929 and represents a local monument to public education. Designed by renowned architect Douglas Ellington, the school was constructed to provide a central high school to address Asheville's growing population in the opening decades of the 20th century. Visually, the structure represents a melding of the Art Deco period with classical elements to provide a virtually fireproof building, the intent being to create a model facility with respect to quality of architectural design and educational offerings. While the facility has experienced 2 closures in its 90-year history, it has served as a public high school since its original construction date and has been the core of an expanding campus. Work done to the main building was part of a 3-phased project
to address envelope, life safety, and accessibility challenges at the school campus. Given the expanse of work to be done, the construction budget and scope had to be diligently managed to achieve a balance of all required elements across 7 buildings. A very high priority in this was the restoration of the main building envelope to address deterioration and water intrusion issues that had manifested over the years. This included replacing the original clay tile roof, copper gutters, flashings, and a full restoration of the existing exterior stone and mortar. Lintels at virtually every exterior corner were replaced due to deterioration, and stones were painstakingly removed, marked, and reinstalled in their original locations as part of this work. Substandard framing at some of the roofs was also remediated. Fortunately, the design team was able to locate the original clay tile manufacturer and worked with representatives and the roofing contractor through a series of color match exercises and mock-ups to determine the appropriate replacement strategy for the tile. Mill finish copper was specified for roofing accessories and flashings to pay tribute to the original construction. Though funding for the work conducted at Asheville High School did not necessitate historic design review at the local or state level, the design team coordinated with these agencies voluntarily, soliciting input on the proposed work to this landmark structure. Griffin Award, Rehabilitation, William Johnson Jr. House. This 2-story craftsman by Richard Sharp Smith is one of the best examples of shingle style in the Grove Park neighborhood. The house was built by Donahoe and Rawls for William Johnson Jr., a real estate agent who moved to the home from Proximity Park. Over the years, the home had fallen into disrepair until new owner Jennifer Mayer and her team lovingly undertook this rehabilitation project. Torn and decayed linoleum from earlier remodeling was removed to uncover heartwood pine floors. Much of the wood flooring was damaged or completely missing in some areas on upper and lower levels, and was restored or relaced with new wood, keeping old imperfections subtly visible under renewed sheen as part of the home's history and memories. In the kitchen, there is a footprint of the original wood stove on the heartwood pine floor. Damaged plaster walls, some with extreme rot in the beadboard base, were removed and replastered. Original windows were restored throughout the home, including the hexagonal windows that grace the dining room. In the kitchen, 2 signature Richard Sharp Smith windows were slightly reduced in order to install modern counters where a large center table had been standard for meal preparation in the 1900s. This was done with great respect for the original design. The shake exterior of the home was badly damaged with dry rot, calling for replacement shingles in some places. The brick walkway around the side yard was created from bricks salvaged during the rehabilitation. Salvaged materials were put to good use when original fixtures were long gone. Finally, the house was upfitted to be smart home compatible, with interior, exterior, and remote monitoring. The finished home is a blend of styles with an abundance of modern and youthful energy tastefully incorporated into the decor. Griffin Award, Rehabilitation, Mini Alexander Cottage. Built in 1905, this Richard Sharp Smith designed 2-story house has Smith's signature Old English style with pebble dash and timber embellishment. Once a residential street, after nearly 100 years, the Cottage was the only remaining early 20th century private residence on Patton Avenue when it was converted to office space in the early 2000s. Unfortunately, the once grand home slowly fell into disrepair, and new owners, Kathy and Bill Early, had a big job in front of them when they purchased the property in 2017. The badly leaking roof was repaired where the wood had rotted away beneath the shingles. 30 windows were reglazed, missing panes replaced, and those with extensive termite damage and general decay were restored over a 3-month period before being reinstalled. All doors and windows were refitted to close properly, and storm windows were installed to protect from future deterioration. Surprisingly, original woodwork throughout the house, including the 5 fireplace mantels, had never been painted and was hand sanded and finished. Hardwood floors were sanded, revealing them not to be oak, as once suspected, but southern heartwood pine. They were finished with durable oil, giving them a golden glow. Finally, research into popular garden trends from the early 1900s resulted in a landscaping plan that is a combination of both formal and inviting. The design included a front yard focal point for a work of art, an ironwork sculpture representing Miss Minnie. Griffin Award, Restoration, E.W. Grove Trolley Houses and Wall. The true history of E.W. Grove Park seems to be muddied in the terms of dates. However, the stone in the wall bears a 1904 date. Grove hired Chauncey Beadle to design the landscape for his recently acquired development property on the west side of Charlotte Street. Beadle had moved to Asheville in 1890 to work with Frederick Law Olmsted and his sons on the design and planting of the Biltmore Estate, and later became superintendent and treasurer of the Biltmore Estate Parks. When Grove earnestly began his development of the Grove Park neighborhood, several acres fronting on Charlotte Street were set aside for a park, with an entrance flanked by a pair of stone shelters, now called the trolley houses. The parks and streets in the Grove Park development were owned by Grove until 1917, when he donated all streets, sidewalks, and parks to the city of Asheville. For many years, the city and the Grove Park Sunset Mountain Neighborhood Association have worked together to create landscape plant beds with irrigation, improve park lighting, maintain trees, and replace park furnishings, such as benches and trash receptacles. In 2017, a detailed historic conditions assessment of the trolley houses and the wall along Charlotte Street was done. There was extensive rot, water, and insect damage, and it was determined that about 80% of the mortar in the stonework was either missing or separating from the stone. Existing mortar was sent for match reports and mixing requirements. All damaged wood was repaired or replaced with new wood. Damaged metal roofing was replaced with matching roofing tiles provided by the Preservation Society. Missing or damaged roof pieces were fabricated and installed. Wood was painted, damaged mortar was removed and replaced, and all of the stonework was cleaned. With this care and attention, E.W. Grove Park will continue to serve many generations to come. Griffin Award, Research, Publication, and Education, Swannanoa Rim Explorer and Valley History Explorer Hiking Series. Nestled in the shadow of the Blue Ridge, Black, and Craggy Mountains, to the east of the confluence of the Swannanoa and French Broad Rivers, the Swannanoa Valley has historically served as a major pathway to western North Carolina. A Native American hunting ground for centuries, the area's natural resources lured the first white settlers to Buncombe County following the American Revolution. As the population of Asheville eclipsed the rural Swannanoa Valley, the area's agricultural fertility and abundant forests sustained small, self-sufficient communities throughout the eastern portion of the county. The arrival of the railroad buttressed an already flourishing tourism and manufacturing industry, and the valley's inspirational vistas led to the establishment of numerous religious conference centers. Like many frontiers and tourist enclaves, the Swannanoa Valley is replete with legends and lore, many of which are being forgotten as generations pass and newcomers flock to the region. The Swannanoa Valley Museum and History Center's popular educational hiking series sprung out of a desire by museum volunteers to share their knowledge of the area's history with long-term residents and newcomers alike, while also raising funds for the nonprofit museum. The museum offers 2 educational hiking programs: the challenging Swannanoa Rim Explorer Hike Series and the more moderate Valley History Explorer Series. Now in its 10th year, the popular Rim series consists of 11 hikes that reveal the history and geography of the Swannanoa Valley. The hikes explore a different section of the 31-mile-long Swannanoa Rim, terrain that spans from Jesse's High Top across Lakey Gap, over Ridgecrest and Montreat, up to the Blue Ridge Parkway and down to Cedar Cliff, above Camp Rockmont. The Swannanoa Rim is billed as the highest and most historic ridgeline in eastern North America. The series takes participants to locations where history happened, including Rafael Guastavino's former estate, the grounds of YMCA Blue Ridge Assembly, and the former campus of Black Mountain College. Hikers trek across the Eastern Continental Divide following the footsteps of the Cherokee to the headwaters of the Catawba River, and along the path that travelers once took from Black Mountain to Mount Mitchell. In 2014, the Valley History Explorer Hike Series grew out of the Rim hikes as an effort to create an additional, more moderate hiking program. This program, rather than hiking the ridge lines around the valley, stays on the valley floor and visits historic locations within the valley's 8 communities. Griffin Award, Research, Publication, and Education, Dale Slusser. Dale Slusser has been a true friend of preservation since 7th grade field trips to the historic Ephrata Cloisters, the Landis Valley Farm Museum, and Gettysburg and Antietam battlegrounds. And in boarding school, he was housed in the 1860 Bonnie Meade Mansion. In college, while completing a bachelor's in education and library science, Dale was compelled by his minor in history. Shortly thereafter, he began research work with Marietta Restoration Associates of Pennsylvania, focusing on what was to be a small expansion to a National Register district, but grew into the listing of over 291 historic resources and designation to the National Register of over 48% of the town. All the while, Dale was pursuing a degree in architectural technology. And his work in researching and documenting the history of important places continued as he moved from Pennsylvania to Georgia to begin his 32-year career for Helps International Ministries as the coordinator for planning and design of faith-based institutions across the globe. In 1993, he and his wife Susan came to Asheville. Dale's work in preservation here has included research on PSABC's headquarters, the Dr. E.W. Grove office, documenting and researching the Thomas Wolfe Cabin, and service as one of our most dedicated board members. As chair of the Endangered Properties Committee, Dale shepherded successful campaigns to save the Ivy Building at AB Tech and the Patton Parker House on Charlotte Street. Currently, he provides PSABC with a multitude of house histories every year, including research for all of our homes tour, all as a volunteer. And if you haven't been to one of our preservation holiday parties, then you don't know about his prize-winning cheese straws. Dale has written 2 books, one of which is a history of Ravenscroft School, downtown Asheville's oldest surviving structure, which is permanently protected by a PSABC easement. His current research will produce a comprehensive study on over 70 historic houses, many lost, of the Swannanoa River Valley from its headwaters to its confluence with the French Broad. It is hard to capture all that Dale has done for historic preservation both here in Asheville and in other communities, and the Preservation Society of Asheville and Buncombe County is honored to present this Griffin Award for research, publication, and education to a true champion of our mission.